everyone, welcome back to Feather Stitch House. My name's Rebecca and I make videos to inspire you to try textile art and embroidery, whether you're a complete beginner or an experienced stitcher. Now every year on this channel we complete a 52-week project called Winging It, and as the name suggests, these pieces are created with minimal planning and I take you through the whole process on camera, and most of the time I'm making it up as I go along and learning as I go. And I'm doing this hopefully to inspire you to give it a whirl and hopefully take some of the fear out of experimenting with textiles and thread. This year we're making 12 slow stitch panels to sort of journal our year and reflect the world where we live and things that are happening in our lives. Now this month we are creating something completely new. We're doing a fabric selfie, so we're stitching a self-portrait using various textile art techniques. Last week we built our background and we manipulated a photo that we're going to use this week, so you will need that picture. This week we are going to be laying the foundations for the portrait itself. Now don't worry, it will look a little bit scary by the end of this video because we've got 2 more weeks of stitching to add to this process and we've got quite a long way to go yet, so please don't worry that it doesn't quite look right. I've chosen to stitch my portrait using scraps of felt, but you could equally use fabrics. You could even create your own fabrics by dyeing or painting, and we've done some of those techniques in previous months. And although my felt is solid colours, I think this would also look quite fun if your fabrics were patterned or textured. So have a look through your stash, see what you've got, and you do you. I think this is going to be a really fun one to play around and experiment with loads of different things. So gather all your bits and pieces and let's get stitching.
Brilliant. So this is where we left things last week, and we created our background, if you remember, and used all of our favourite fabrics to create this kind of scrappy, patchy affair. I'm bringing back in my picture, so if you remember last week we adjusted the contrast on a photo of ourselves and we drew around the outlines of all the shapes on that, and that's given us a template for creating our portrait. And I've decided I'm going to use felt for my portrait. You could use any fabrics you like, but what I've tried to do is get a sort of light medium dark tone for my skin, and I've got a light medium and dark tone for my hair. I've got a darker sort of version of my skin colour for the lips and any very shadowy bits, so maybe like the underside of my neck or whatever. And then I've just chosen some colours that I'm going to use for the clothing, and the clothing is where I'm going to start today. So I'm really nervous about this. Yeah, so if you haven't got felt and you want to use fabric, you would do it in exactly the same way. What I would recommend is, if you're using a fabric that frays easily, that you either use bond web to attach it to your background, or you could use a stabilizer, like an interfacing on the back, just to give it a little bit of structure and help it to not just disintegrate as you're working with it, because we are going to overstitch this. What we're going to do today is piece together the jigsaw that's going to create roughly our portrait, but we're not going to do any overstitching today, so it's going to look a bit weird probably by the end of today's video, but let's go for it. Like I said last week, I've never done this before, so this could go horribly wrong or it could be amazing. Who knows? Right, so the first thing I'm going to do is cut out the outline of my shirt. So I'm going to keep this fairly simple. So we've got this line going up here. I'm going to cut around my hair. So this is my shirt piece that's going to go here, and I want to cut around my hair down here, like that, and it's very shadowy in here, so I'm going to just join those cuts up. There we go. So that gives me my shirt left and my shirt right, and just to help me out, this is an air erase pen, so hopefully the markings won't disappear before I've used them. So we're going to cut out 2 pieces of felt that are going to sit there and there. So let's do this sort of denim-y colour, and it will echo the denims at the top. Right, so I don't want to waste any felt, so I've positioned that right in the corner of my felt piece, and I'm just going to use my disappearing pen to mark in the edge of that piece. And this is wool felt, so I can use my embroidery scissors. And I'm just going to cut along that line to create the first piece of my portrait. I thought we could start with something nice and easy because I'm really scared. So that piece is going to go there, and let's get my applique pins in. My camera's not enjoying the strong contrast between this blue felt and the white background, so the sooner we can get this bit over with, the better. I'm just going to pin that in place like that, and then we want our left piece. So what we're doing is reducing our template. Might as well go up the other end just to make use of the other corner. This piece goes in not like that, like that. There we go. Okay. Well, that was fairly harmless, I would say. We're okay. Now, we could, let's stitch these down as we go. Let's stitch as we go. So I've just got some normal machine cotton here. Going to knot the end, and we learnt our invisible tacking stitch last week, and so I'm going to use that again. I'm using white thread, so I've got to use it because I don't really want it to show. So I'm bringing my needle up and I'm taking it down very close to where it came up, and then I'm moving along on the back. So my long stitches are on the back of my work, and that just puts in a tiny little stitch. I don't even know if you can see that, and with our over stitching you won't notice it at all, but it holds that piece of felt or fabric firmly onto the background so that you don't have to work around hundreds of pins all the time. So I'm just going to work my way around the outside of this piece, and then I'll do the same for the other one. Okay, right, I've got those pieces of my shirt stitched down, and I've selected some shades that kind of match the tone of my skin. So if I put my hand there, you can see it's not quite accurate, obviously, because our skin is lots of different shades, but it's close enough. I'm very fair, so that that's why I've selected the colours that I have. So I'm thinking that this will work for lips and possibly just around, if I bring the picture in, around the most shadowy parts of my nose, maybe these little smile lines here, I don't know what these are called, but and maybe underneath this most shadowy part under my chin. But the other colours are going to work really well for the rest of my face. So I'm going to start with this piece here and we can work our way up. So I've got a very light piece here. I don't want it to be the white because I don't want to look ghostly, but maybe this paler colour here will work. So I'm ignoring my glasses chain for a moment, and I'm going to cut around the shape of my hair, and I'm just going to cut out that highlighted piece. Just here, and if we're getting this right, our pieces should slot together, possibly with a very slight overlap, but that's what we're going to do. So I want a light coloured piece of felt. This is slightly different. This is a kind of mottled. Maybe I should do this one because it's a bit lower down. So again, setting my pattern piece, my template piece on top. Obviously, if you're using fabric, if you use an erasable marker, then you can work on the front of the fabric. You don't have to be reversing anything. But if you did need to reverse it, you just flip your pattern piece over. So you'll notice as I'm cutting that my scissors don't move very much. I'm literally just opening and closing them. It's the fabric or the felt that moves, and that way you're going to get a much more accurate cut. There we go. So this bit should sit nicely here, like that. Magic. Okay, so I can put a pin in there just to hold that in place, and then I want a slightly darker shade for this part of my neck. So let's cut up there, and then we've got my very round jawline like that, and I'm just going to cut up there because we've got two pieces going on here. Because we've got this shadow as well, so I'm just going to cut that shadow piece out. That's going to be my darkest shade, I think. So all I'm doing is following the pencil lines that I made last week. Okay, We don't want to lose that, so I'm just going to pop that there. So this piece is going to sit here like that. And I want a slightly darker shade, so I've got this sort of, I don't know, it's more like a tan colour, and same process again. So that piece is going to go there like that. And I'm going to be really careful with scraps here because we're going to have some quite unusually shaped pieces, and I don't want to confuse myself and think that that's part of what I'm doing. So that piece goes back, and we've got our shadowy piece here, and I want my darker tone for this one. That's going to tuck in somewhere like that. Now felt is really forgiving, so that wasn't particularly cut out well, but you can manipulate it a little bit because it's not woven. You can manipulate it a little bit to fit into the space. So I hope that you can see kind of what I'm doing. Right, I'm going to do the face in one piece now. So I'm going to cut out around the hair first of all. Like this, and I'm going to cut out just that face piece. That's going to go on by itself. So let's move that out of the way, and we're going to go back to the paler colour first of all. And I don't mind building this out a little bit from the surface because it's going to give a little bit of dimension to the face. So just let's just work our way around. It's very strange seeing just your face without any hair. But with the line of the hair taken away. So apparently that's what shape my face is. I don't believe it, it's far rounder than that. So this is going to be much easier once I've started stitching all of this down. It's going to fit together a lot better. So I think that goes up there like that. Right, so let's get some pins in quick. I realised I hadn't pinned down that darkest pink bit. Right, I've got my face piece handy, but I want to do the hair quickly before we start putting features on the face. So this is very difficult. My hair was cut much shorter than I was expecting it to be cut when I last had it done, and so I couldn't see my own hair. So we had a bizarre moment yesterday where my husband was matching felt to the colour of my hair, and I couldn't see, so I'm having to trust him. Right, I'm going to take out this darkest section. I chose to do felt partly because it's really forgiving and you can manipulate it a bit and it doesn't fray, so I thought that would take out that element of drama from the process. But also I love working with felt. If you were around in 2022, the whole of our project was based around felt, and just as a preview, I haven't quite got my plan together for 2025 yet, but we're going back to felt because I've missed it. We'll still use fabrics and stitch, but we're going to go back to working on felt, I think. And yeah, I just love it, and we work with felt in all of our products, so the kits that we sell on our website are all felt. It is just a joy to stitch with, and I've missed it, so I wanted to get some felt in, and I thought I can't really do a self-portrait and not use felt. Just felt all wrong. See what I did there? Ridiculous. Right, so I bought in some mid-tone felt. I did just cut out the wrong piece. Full disclosure. I cut out my lightest shade piece, but on my mid-tone fabric. So yeah, I don't know what I'll do with that. I never throw felt away though, because sometimes you need the tiniest pieces of a colour. So it's going to be something like that, and I can always bring back in my template piece. So this one needs a little bit shaving off there. That's a bit better. So that will tuck in there like that, something like that. We will be correcting this with stitch, so don't want to pretend like this is going to be a perfect process, because sometimes, particularly if you take into account the width of the line that you draw, your pieces are going to slightly change shape, but it should be roughly correct, and then we're going to overstitch. You can do some correcting as you're stitching your pieces down, but when we overstitch, we'll plug any gaps and add details that will help make everything much clearer. So I'm going to try and get that in there. This is where felt comes into its own, because we can manipulate these bits here so that they slot together and create exactly the right shape. So that's looking like it's working pretty well. So I'm going to do exactly the same with the other side of the hair, and then we'll come back and work on the face. Okay, so here's where we're up to. I've put in the hair. I discovered that I'd made a bit of a mistake with the positioning of this one, which is why it wasn't working. I'd put it down here with this hook coming over this side, but it needed to go a bit further up, and I think that is working pretty well so far. Pretty well. There's a little bit of, I needed to come a little bit further down, I think, with the hair here, but I think we can stitch over that. And actually I've got, the problem is that I need to put in my glasses chain, so we'll come to that. I'm going to do that with beads, I think, later in the process. So I'm going to bring back in my face piece because now we're going to put in some light and shade. So the first piece I want to deal with is this nose piece, which is a highlight. So we're going to cut away. It's very sinister, just carving up my face. We're going to cut away this piece here and use it as a template for the very lightest of my felts, because this is going to hopefully give a little bit of shape to my face. Now there are some mid-tones around here, but I'm not going to worry about those because I think let's just stick with the main. So this is a very, very pale pink. It's like an oyster shell colour, and I think it's going to work. I think it's going to work quite well as a highlight on this pale fleshy tone. I don't like calling it a fleshy tone because not all flesh is the same colour, but it's the colour of my flesh, kind of. So whatever tone works for you. So hard to believe that that is a shape that appears on my face, but there we go. So I'm going to cut that out. And I'm hoping that some of these mid-tones will just naturally appear because of the layering that we're doing. So we've already got our mid-tone down. What we're doing is putting in highlights now and shadows, and the highlights are going to work because they are actually going to be further forward than the mid-tones, and that is why they're highlights on my face. So this bit of my face is lighter because it's further forward. Now I wonder if maybe we can make that mid-tone work. So if I cut around this mid-tone here, I can cut that bit off, and that's going to give me a little bit of shadow at the hairline. I hope you don't mind me working this out as I'm going along. That is why we call this project Winging It. And I want another one coming off here. So if I just line up the nose, I can shave off this bit here, and that gives that hairline shadow. Now what I need to make sure of, let's do it like this, let's position that nose piece because I no longer have the hairline. So if I put my template with the cutaway back on, I can put in some marks that are going to help me position that piece that I've just cut out. So that will sit on those lines there, and I should have a bit of shadow. There we go. Right, okay, let's have a look at, we've got another highlight here on the eyebrows, so I'm going to cut that away, and then I'm going to come in from this side and cut away this eye shape here. So these are another two highlights. We're going to put some eyes in there shortly. Got lots of little bits. So again, I'm going to just sit my pattern on the surface, and I want to give myself a guideline. So I don't need to do the whole shape. I just need to help myself position the bits that I'm going to cut out. So I'm just looking at where on the pattern the highlights fall. There we go. So got a couple of bits to cut out here. Let's start with this right eye piece. Obviously the eye is going to go over the top, but around that top of the cheekbone is where the light's catching. So we've got that one. Oh, I'm having to concentrate quite hard on this one. So that one can go in there. Obviously all these pink lines will disappear. And we need another one here for the left eye. Now I'm going to not use all of that because that is actually shadow. So let's try that one again. Let's come down here because we've got a little scoop there that just seems perfect. Like that. Right, so I'm going to just come in from the bottom here. So we've got another highlight that creates the chin here, and I'm going to just cut around that. Now this one is kind of enclosed, so it's really important that I position this. So I'm just going to pop this while I've still got part of the outline. I want to pop this back on. That joins up there, and let's just put in some markers. You don't have to do them all, you just want to give yourself some points where you can anchor the shape that you're cutting out. So that's this one. And I think this is my last highlight, so now it's just a case of putting in the shadows and the actual facial features. Gosh, that's hard to say when you're concentrating. So that one goes in there like that. Okay, so we've got a shadow for the nostrils. So I'm just going to cut that little piece out. It's only a small one. We've already got our mid-tone, so we just want to put the nostrils in. And this is going to tuck right underneath the nose piece here, so I've already got my anchor point for this one. So it is my darkest tone that I'm using here because this is the shadowiest bit of my face. That's going to tuck under there like that. Just going to pin some of these down before they all start moving around. And again, don't panic if things don't look exactly right, because we can make some adjustments when we're stitching, so it's no big deal. Just make sure you don't catch any pins underneath the pieces that you're pinning down. So I've got another pin there, look. So although this looks complicated, all we're doing, it really helps to reduce your template because we're just dealing with one shape at a time. And so if you were cutting all these pieces out in a oneer and then trying to piece them back together, it would be a nightmare. But because we're doing this by a reduction method, it actually simplifies the process quite a lot, and so you don't really need to worry too much. So here comes the mouth and lips. So I'm going to do that in my darkest colour. If you're a lipstick wearer, then you could have some fun with this, but I'm not. I never wear lipstick. I do need some help positioning that now that I've taken away the lips. I think they just sit along the top there. Yes, they do. So the lips go on there. And and I want some teeth. Oh crikey, all my pattern pieces going flying. Some teeth I need. This is never going to look quite right with all the outlines. You can see I've abandoned, by the way, my air erase pen because it was just fading far too quickly. So I just want to position some teeth. It's exactly where that pin is typically. So we can get those in there like that. And all the detail is going to come from the stitching. So the last thing is the eyes, and then we can get this all stitched down. I'm going to cut around here like this. Oh, that looks really odd. So I want to locate the eye. Now this is where you're going to make yourself look not like you if you aren't really careful. So that's one. Let's do one at a time. And what I thought I'd do is do the whole eye in the colour of my eyes, and then we can add our highlight and the pupil with some stitch. So that's what I'm thinking. I might live to regret this, but let's see how it goes. So what you want is the shape of the eyes, and this is hopefully going to start making it look like you. I don't know whether that's going to work, but we'll try it. So we've got this piece here, and just want to give myself a line to guide the position of the eye there before I chop out the bottom bit. So this is where you have to check and shave bits off, because the eyes are going to really determine who this is a portrait of. So if they're not quite the right shape, it's going to not entirely look like you. So that's too big, that one. There we go. So that's quite creepy looking with the solid eyes, but yeah, as we add stitch, it's all going to get much clearer. So that, in essence, is my face. Who knew? So I'm just going to pin those eyes in place. Clear away some bits and bobs. And yeah, so this is basically the jigsaw that is going to form our self-portrait. So don't panic that it looks quite creepy because we're going to embellish this a little bit more. So what I'm going to do, off camera because you don't need to see me doing that, is stitch all of this down in the same way that we stitch down this the shirt pieces at the bottom. So I'm just going to go around with my invisible tacking stitch and just secure all these things in place, and hopefully once that's done and all the pins are out, we're going to get a bit more of a sense of the portrait taking shape. So I'm going to do that and then I'll come back and show you the results at the end. Okay, so here we are. I've attached all of my tonal sections. I'm thinking I might need to add a little bit more of this maybe to define the chin and possibly under the cheeks here, but at the moment I'm quite happy with the way it's going. So it does look a bit scary. No detail in the eyes is always quite a scary prospect, but I think you can just about see that this design here is taken from this photo. So that's where we're going to leave it this week. Can't wait to see your versions of this, and I should say that if this idea of getting light and shade is a little bit much for you, then you could just do the basic shapes. So you could just do a shape for the hair, a shape for the face, a shape for the eyes, nose and mouth, and a shape for any clothing that you want to include. So you don't have to go quite to the lengths that I've gone to create light and shade on the face, and it remains to be seen whether this is going to really work or not. So that's where we're going to leave it this week. Really looking forward to seeing your portraits, your textile portraits. I think this is going to be quite an exciting one to share because lots of us don't share images of ourselves on social media, so this will be a version of you that you might feel confident sharing. So hope you've enjoyed that, something completely different. Never done anything like this before on this channel, so hope you are enjoying this little adventure in self-portraiture. Do share your work so far at hashtag FSHWingUnit24, and if you don't want to share on Instagram, you can join our dedicated Facebook group, and details of that are in the description below. You just have to agree to the group rules and I will let you in. So have a great week stitching. Oh yes, don't forget to tag me if you do share at Feather Stitch House. I'll put it down at the bottom here, at Feather Stitch House, and that way I get notified that you've uploaded something and I'll be able to see your work. So yeah, have a great week creating the basis for your self-portrait, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!